One day Bishr, walking in the streets, found a ripped piece of paper on the floor. He looked, he picked up the paper and he realized it's a ripped piece of the Quran. And immediately he cleansed this piece of paper from the dust, from the mud. He always would carry some atar, perfume with him, so he put some perfume on the piece of paper. He kissed it, put it above his head, and he found a crack in the wall, so he placed that piece of paper in that crack in the wall so people would not step over the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Holy Quran. And he went about his business. That same evening, again, people gathered at his home, and there was a party, and there were many people. And there was a slave girl that worked for Bishr, who was taking out the rubbish, who was taking out the trash. When she was taking out the trash, she saw a man. As she described, he had the face and the charisma of prophets. He stopped there by the home and he said, "Who does this home belong to?" She says, "This home belongs to my master Bishr." He says, "Let me ask you something. This Bishr, your master, is he a slave or is he a free man?" She says, "How can he be a slave and have this lavish life and this beautiful mansion and all those people are there? How can he be a slave?" And this man then said, "That's what I thought. He could not be a slave and have such a life." And the man continued his journey. The slave girl went inside and Bishr asked her, he said, "Who were you speaking with? What took you so long?" She says, "I really don't know. I saw a man and I was mesmerized by him. And he asked me a very strange question. He said, 'Are you Bishr, the owner of this home? Are you a free man or a slave?' And I said, 'Of course, how can you be a slave? You are a free man.' And then he said, 'That's what I thought.'" Immediately, Bishr had a moment of realization, a moment of awakening. He was shaken. He ran out of the house barefoot. He went to this man and he told him, "Oh man, what is your name?" He said, "My name is Musa." "Musa, the son of whom?" "Musa, the son of Ja'far. Musa ibn Ja'far, al-Qadr alayhi salam." He says, "I have only heard of you, but now I want to become one of your disciples. I don't want to leave you anymore." The Imam said, "Okay, go back to the house and wear your shoes because you're barefoot." He said, "No, that home, I will never go back to it." And therefore he is known in history as Bishr al-Haafi, Bishr the Barefoot. One of the greatest mystical individuals in the history of Islam. One of the close disciples of Musa ibn Ja'far and other members of the Ahlul Bayt. He asked the Imam, he said, "Ya ibn Rasulullah, what were you doing in front of my home at that time of the night?" He said, "Bishr," listen to this, this is the important part of the story. He says, "Bishr, do you recall when you saw the ripped piece of the paper of the Quran?" He said, Yes, I do." He says, "What did you do with it?" He says, "Well, no one was there, but I cleansed it, I purified it, and I kissed it, I put it above my head, and I put it at a crack of a wall so that nobody can step over it." He said, "Bishr, in that moment the Quran spoke with you. But you did not hear it with your ears, you felt it with your heart. The Quran said, 'Bishr, you cleansed me. I will cleanse you. You purified me, I will purify you. You honored me, I will honor you. You protected me, I will protect you. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam says, Inna al-Qur'ana shafi'un mushaffa'. The Qur'an is also the shafa'ah. But the shafa'ah of the Qur'an is always accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Qur'an does shafa'ah. And when we gather in such beautiful nights, the nights of the spring of the Quran, Shahru Ramadan, to familiarize ourselves with the Holy Quran, first and foremost, brothers and sisters, we ought to understand that the Ahlul Bayt taught us the central theme of our discussions should be the Quran. Not dreams, not fictitious tales, not stories. Why? Because amongst us we have the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the last and the final revelation. However, why is it that we find we cannot really connect to the Quran? We don't really find the Quran as attractive as people found it in the beginning of the religion of Islam. What do I mean? You see, the Quran would be revealed, Rasulullah would stand in front of the Kaaba and he would recite a new chapter, a few verses from the Quran. And the pagan Arabs would be so mesmerized by the Holy Quran that they would say, this Quran has sihr. Quran has black magic. Therefore, they would put their fingers in their ears and they would cover their heads with their aba and they would walk, they would run so that they do not hear the words of the Quran, because they thought they were so magical that if they hear them, the spell of Muhammad will fall onto them and they have to become Muslim. They felt the sweetness of the Quran. People would hear one ayah from the Quran and they could not separate themselves from the Quran. Why is it that today we don't have the same relationship with the Holy Quran? Why is it that today we are not as mesmerized with the Quran? Is it because the Quran is an old book? And now we have new books, new entertainment? Amir al-Mu'mineen wa Mawla al-Muwahhideen Ali ibn Abi Talib, in one of his descriptions of the Holy Quran, says, وَإِنَّهُ لِآخِرِنَا كَمَا هُوَ لِأَوَّلِنَا. This Quran, it is for the very last of us as it were for the very first of us. As fresh, as fruitful, as meaningful, as mesmerizing, as beautiful, as listenful. And then he says, وَإِنَّهُ يَتَجَدَّدُ كَمَا يَتَجَدَّدُ اللَّيْلُ وَالنَّهَارُ. And the Quran rejuvenates itself